City Matters.
Hello and welcome to Many Voices, One Community, stories that unite us across Long Island and beyond. I'm Gaitley Stevenson Mathews. I'm so very pleased to be your host, and what a very great treat it is today. I've been working for a long time to get Dr.
Doeschner.
Dr. Doeschner. I've said it 3 times, Dr. Doeschner, to get Dr. Doeschner on the show. And Dr. Doeschner, what a pleasure to have you today. I was doing a little bit of research on your background, on your life before coming to Glen Cove. I know you've been here for a long time now. And for viewers, Dr. Doeschner is our new superintendent of schools as of July of last year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Great. So what I may do, if you don't mind, I'd love to just invite you to just share a little bit about yourself. Then we might dive into a little bit more, and then we'll talk more about the school district. And I will say the exciting things that you're bringing to the district. So why don't you just introduce yourself?
Sure. So as you said, my name is Dr. Doeschner, Alexa Doeschner, and I have been with the Glen Cove City School District now 11 years. It is an honor to be the superintendent of the district. I came to Glen Cove in terms of my professional life as an assistant principal at the high school, and have held different roles across the organization. So I worked as a coordinator of science in a curriculum role. I was also the elementary principal of Landing Elementary, and I was the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction before becoming the superintendent. I also lived in the Glen Cove community for about 7 years, from the year my daughter was born to 2019, when we needed more space and ended up finding it in Suffolk County.
Right, and what a great place to live, right?
Yes, it absolutely is.
Oh my
Glen
gosh,
Cove is
yep.
amazing. It really welcomed us with open arms. It was the first home we owned. My children really grew up here for the beginning part of their lives and really made lifelong bonds. We still have friends in the community, so that will never change, which is amazing.
Sure. I will say, I moved here in 2007.
Yes.
And for us, moving to Glen Cove, I'm half a block from Morgan Park. I love the park. I love the history. There's so many things to love about Glen Cove.
Yes.
But what you come to realize, and certainly you realize through the school system, is at the end of the day, the great gift of Glen Cove is the community of Glen Cove. Mm-hmm. And I will confess that I visited with a few people just asking about you. And it's funny because I talked to the president the former president. She's now the immediate past president of Aloja Glen Cove, Marissa Gambino.
Yes.
And so I just mentioned, she said, oh my gosh, I just spoke to her. We just had the program for International Day, and we had some great things on Italian heritage and such. And I thought, she's made such an impression with the Italian community. Mm-hmm. And then I talked to my good buddy, who is president of the North Shore Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
And she said to me, oh my gosh, they put together a wonderful program. I'm certainly familiar with the North Shore Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, having been on the board and worked with Connie in that board. And again, I thought, oh my gosh, look, she's so well liked and respected in the Hispanic community. And, that over and over and over again, as I have visited with people. And, I don't know if you know this, but I also serve on the board of the Glen Cove EOC.
Yes.
And the principal of the high school, Alan,
yes,
is also on that board. And again, something came up. There was concern or interest about something at the school. And what I hear over and over again is that she is ready to listen to ideas.
Thank you so much for saying that.
No, and I mean that. And I think it's so easy. I think sometimes people think leadership is about, being the strong leader who tells everyone the way it's supposed to be done, and I am the one with the best idea, and it's going to emanate from me, and that's how it's going to be. And everyone I have spoken to has felt like there's been a respect for what all bring to the table. And perhaps I'm wrong. Sometimes are we the sum of our parts?
Mm-hmm.
Is it our upbringing that brings that equation to it? Mm-hmm. Is it all just a mistake? I know, as I remember reading, you were born in Transylvania.
Yes.
And then moved to Venezuela and then eventually here. Why don't you share? So first off, let me ask this question. So is that a mistake as far as the community feeling that you are listening to them? And then secondly, how have you come to be the person who is ready to work in that fashion?
Sure. So I think it's not a mistake, and it's very affirming to hear that the community perceives me in that way. I definitely have modeled my leadership as a servant leader, so somebody who really listens and is leading through service. And I always say, I'm proud to serve as a superintendent. That's a very intentional word that I choose because it really resonates with me that leadership in many ways is really putting others before yourself, which is difficult to understand because you think that a leader is the person up front and in the spotlight, but I think it's so much more. In addition to that, I think I'm very collaborative as an individual, so I have, I collaborate with my team, my staff, my administrators, my teachers, my facility staff, my clerical staff, nurses, monitors, TAs. We have so many different roles in the district, and I collaborate with all of them in different ways, but all of that is still collaboration. So I definitely think that the way I lead, the way I speak with people, I speak with everyone the same. I don't treat people differently, is who I am.
And if I can ask Dr. Doeschner, so I was reading somewhere that both of your parents were professors. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think for me, I think in terms of my mother was a nurse. Mm-hmm. And I think about the pivotal times in my life. I think about nursing being such a great profession and education being such great professions. Because, at a pivotal time in your life, I think oftentimes teachers wonder if anybody's listening to them. Mm-hmm. But you never know when a child or a young person is sitting in that seat and really paying attention. And the number of times that you talk to someone and say, who shaped your life? Or why did you go into medicine? Or why did you go into this? They so often point back to a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's did you find having that as part of your growing up influential in who you are today?
So I do think it influenced me. I think, originally I did not want to go into education because it was what my parents did. So oftentimes we try to steer away from what our parents did. But I wanted to go into medicine and into the medical field. So that is what I pursued after college. But then as circumstance would have it, I ended up falling right into education. I realized that I was not as passionate as I once was with medicine and that I had fallen out of love with that profession. So I then, veered back and realized that if I would think back to all of my experiences, I had done a lot of teaching assistant positions while in college. I had taught E&L students as a part-time job when I was working in a laboratory, a cancer lab. And all of those experiences really made me realize education is what really I was meant to do. So I became a New York City teaching fellow, and that's how I started being a teacher. In terms of my parents, I think what I've always taken from them is the high expectations that they held for us. Education was always a value, and we were expected to really perform and achieve as much as we could.
Right. And did you have siblings, or were you an only child? Or?
I have one sister. She is a college professor of chemistry at Holy Cross. And we don't see each other as often, but we're very close. And we're very alike. So if you look her up, she looks just like me.
Oh, wow. So I also have one sibling.
Okay.
And in fact, there's an episode that I brought up my brother.
Does he look just like you?
He does it. Well, I don't think we do, but other
Okay,
people
other
do.
people say-
Other people
yes,
say we do.
yes.
But he's a retired colonel in the military, and
Okay.
you know, I came up through the ranks in the creative arts and
Mm-hmm.
theater and such. So we are about as different as we can be in many ways. But
Okay.
at this point, my parents are deceased, so he's all I have in the world as far
Yes.
as blood relatives.
Yeah.
Is
That's
you know,
so
right
special.
next to. Yeah. So, but that connection to family and how it informs you in your forward march. Do you feel like your time that you spent in medicine, was that lost? Do you find that of value now, or?
I don't think it was lost. I think it really helped me. You know, I'm in my profession now. I have to do a lot of reading and really understanding from text. So a medical school does a lot to prepare you in that way. In addition, I think looking at data and numerical information is very critical in medicine as well. So that was also a skill that I use on a daily basis. And then beyond that, I think medical school was just such a rigorous experience that it kind of puts you through the paces. So
Right.
it kind of builds up that stamina that you need
Right.
as an
So-
administrator.
So, this is a little off the beaten path, but do you believe in destiny?
In destiny,
That things are meant to be
Yes.
sometimes?
yes, I do. I would say
The only
do.
reason I say
Yes.
that, I think, you know, I heard a story years ago, and it was actually from my faith tradition. It was a pastor who was talking about it. And the woman said to her, you know, I thought I was going to be this, and I did this, and I failed, and instead I had to go this route, and then I did this, and then I discovered, you know, the third thing that I just felt I was supposed to do. So what the past, she said, you know, I did plan A, and it didn't work, so in the end I chose plan B.
Right.
And what he said to her was, how do you know that you've not been on plan A all along?
That's a great question.
You know, because I think about that. I think, you know, I went to a small liberal arts college for students who come from low-income families, Berea College, mountains of Kentucky. And so all of these students are from lower-income families, but with great promise, smart kids. And I often found that sometimes, because the parents so wanted them just to get a good job, good job. So if you had a kid who wanted to be an opera singer, mom and dad were a little more prone to say, you know,
Try
that's
something.
great,
Yeah.
but, you know,
Is it marketable?
yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, it's that old Les Brown, I think is who they attribute the quote to, but the reach for the stars, even if you reach for the moon,
Yeah.
even if you miss, you'll land
in
among the stars.
Yeah, that's a great saying.
Because I think about, if you empower a child for at their gut, what they feel they need to do. Even, you know, I had a niece who wanted to study ballet, and she was really quite good. She was not the typical build of a ballet dancer, but she studied for years and years, and she ended up working in administration and working for a ballet company. Did not work professionally in that, but everything she learned. So I often feel nothing is lost.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
if
I would
you're
agree
present,
with you. Yes.
you know, it's not lost. So tell me, as far as your first memory. So when did you move from from Transylvania to Venezuela to the States?
So I was only 2 years old when we left Romania, and I was born in the Transylvania part of Romania.
Okay.
So I was 2, and I don't remember Romania. My earliest memory would be Venezuela, but I did not speak Spanish when I arrived in Venezuela. I only spoke Romanian. My parents were trying to teach me, but I refused. So I had to learn Spanish as a toddler. And I remember very, very vague memories, but not being able to communicate with my teachers. And then we moved from Venezuela to the United States when I was 8. But one of my first memories in Venezuela is, and this is a very funny story, that I was 3 years old, and I was in the daycare facility that belonged to the Institute of Technology where my father taught. And so I decided one recess period to climb out of the hole in the back fence and lead most of my classmates across the hills to where his lab was. And so when the teachers came out and realized that I had now basically emptied the classroom, just a few students had stayed behind, it was nuts, because now they're like, well, where is she? And now, we have to try to find her. So they called my father, who then came down and met me halfway, because it was scary. Venezuela there's wild country there.
Right,
so,
right.
So there's snakes and scorpions. So this was quite the adventure. But in my eyes, it wasn't an adventure. It was just, let me show you where my father works.
Right.
So that's one of my earliest
Wow.
memories.
And certainly having that experience, and then to realize, especially with the language difference.
Yes.
And again, some of your parts, here, when I was talking to Marissa Gambino, I had her
Yes.
on the show, and she was talking when she first came here, and they didn't speak English.
Yes.
And it was very hard.
Yes.
I'm sure being able to not just sympathize, but truly empathize with our families who are here when English is a second language.
Yes.
And, in some ways you feel like, oh, well, everywhere you go, everything's in English and Spanish. Not the case.
Right.
Not the case. And it's pardon me. And it's certainly a tricky thing. Have you found that your experience has helped you as you work with our families? And certainly, from my vantage point, Glen Cove is certainly more diverse than some of our neighboring municipalities and our neighboring school districts, which takes a special kind of talent. Have you found that experience as a child has helped you in your work here?
I think so. I think, just recently we celebrated International Night at the high school. It was incredibly well attended. We had families, represented, our students represent like the entire world. We actually had a map where the students put pins in the map. I unfortunately couldn't be present for International Night. I was in Albany for Lobby Day with the other superintendents across the state. But I saw videos and photos, and it just made me so proud. We had students from Greece descent, Italian descent, Polish, Turkey, Russian, countries across Central and South America. Just really proud of who they are and proud to share with the rest of the community food, culture, dance, art forms that they hold on to dearly. So I definitely believe I empathize with all of our immigrant students, whether they are recent immigrants or whether their families are immigrants to Glen Cove from generations ago.
Right. And certainly Glen Cove, whether it was the wave of Polish immigrants or
Right.
whether it was the
Yes.
wave of Italian immigrants or Scottish immigrants, or certainly more recently our Hispanic immigrants, it has in our nation, certainly.
Yes.
I remember, you think about if you went to an event 50 years ago, there's an event in Glen Cove called Family Fun Day. And if you went to that event 50, 60 years ago, who you'd have seen walking around would be very different than what you see now. And I think about, I remember this because I remember going to a Family Fun Day, and I grew up in a region of the country that was close to 50% African American, maybe 25% Anglo white, and then another 25 Native American. So in my head, there was certainly a mix that I was comfortable and familiar with.
Yes.
But certainly you go to Locust Valley or Great Neck or Glen Cove or, from one municipality to the other, it changes.
Yes.
It just changes based on who's there. But, here in Glen Cove, you go to Family Fun Day and every race, every ethnicity, every religion, every background is there.
Yes.
And I feel like just in that, it is an education that not every kid is going to get because we have such diversity in this community. And to me, the idea that you can celebrate everyone's ethnicity, their background, their heritage, and learn from one another And I feel like oftentimes when you do that, what you discover is that common thread. The things that really are most important. Family. Good education.
Right.
Caring for one another. Faith.
Yes.
Your background. And traditions.
Yes.
So very important. As an educator, if there is a young person coming up who thinks maybe they'd like to be an administrator, they feel like they're the kind of person who can help pull things together. What would your advice be to that young person?
I think my advice would be that it is a very difficult position. All our administrative positions are difficult just because there's a lot that rests on the administrators in terms of responsibility. People often, if something doesn't go right or they have disagreements, will fault the administrator, which is the role that we take on when we are, ascending our professional ladder. So it's something that we know we're taking on, but it's not always so easy when it comes to, someone who's unhappy with something. So it's difficult.
So be prepared.
Be prepared. But it is very rewarding because you can really see your impact across the school district. So if you are a principal, you see your impact within that school. You can really work on creating what's so vital, that school culture that we talk about. If you are in a curriculum director or coordinator, you're really working with understanding how children learn, really going into the classrooms and shaping their experiences. If you're working as a coordinator of athletics, then you're really trying to cultivate that understanding of the importance of athletics and what it means for a school district, that Glen Cove pride that we feel. So across the board, you really are having more and more effect on the students and the staff. But with that comes a much higher level of responsibility.
Right. So be prepared.
Yes.
But if it's something you really want to do,
it's definitely rewarding.
Yeah, that's great. So we only have a few more minutes here. As far as I will tell you from the outside. I notice just on social media, I notice in talking to colleagues in the community, certainly many neighbors who have children in the school district. You certainly are engaged in the community. You certainly, I see you at so many events. I see you talking to the parents, talking to the kids. I think that accessibility doesn't always exist in administrators. I think sometimes they give them a distance. But again, what I hear from the community is so positive and appreciative of that aspect that you bring to the work. Are there things that you hope to do in the school district in the next 2 to 3 years?
Sure. So a lot of our work really right now needs to focus on the shifts and the changes that are happening at the state education department. We are looking to shift graduation requirements across the state, and we're waiting for more information and guidance from the state in that respect. But some things that we are doing are really trying to understand what are the skills that students really need to leave us with, because education is shifting and it's shifting very quickly. There's a photograph of like a city in New York where you have one car, a very simple model of a car, and everything else is a horse-drawn carriage. And then within 5 years, it's the opposite. It's one horse-drawn carriage and all the rest are cars. So that's when change was happening slowly. So now change is happening even faster. So we really have to be prepared and preparing students for what the future holds when we're not even sure what that future is going to look like.
Right. Well, I feel like even with artificial intelligence,
yes.
I feel like every day I need to learn a new skill just to stay current, because there's some new thing that you need to learn to kind of stay ahead of the game, because there's some machine that can squirt something out, and it's
yes,
crazy.
It is crazy. Now we're moving at a pace of change that we haven't seen ever.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think it is cumulative. I think it adds, and it is. So I will say again, seeing your engagement in the community and your engagement with the students and families, I feel great confidence that you will stay ahead of that game. And it is a tricky one. And again, that is listening, paying
Yes,
attention,
that's right.
making some hard decisions, I'm sure. But so important.
Thank you.
Dr. Doeschner, it's really been a pleasure having you here today. Is there
pleasure,
anything
too.
else you wanted to share before we sign off?
I can't think of anything. I think your questions were very, very inquisitive and very, very well put together, because I think the conversation has taken so many twists and turns. But I appreciate the positive feedback and hearing that the community sees my investment and my dedication to the district.
They certainly do. And thank you
you.
so very much. You've been watching Many Voices, One Community. I'm Gaitley Stevenson Mathews, and this is hmTV at hmTC. And I've been talking to Dr. Doeschner, and what a pleasure. Thank you so very much.